asking, should the police investigate the allegations against Prince Andrew?
Joey writes, everyone linked to the dossier must be investigated. Sally writes, I want to see justice for all the girls involved, especially the youngest of them, but get the feeling people are just happy to have Andrew as a scapegoat and look no further.
Neil says, I think he should be interviewed by the FBI, but at Scotland Yard with his solicitor present. And Judy writes, if the events took place in the USA, it's of no concern to the UK police. As for the other names, well, you would expect to find the names of rich, famous and influential people in Epstein's address book, wouldn't you? Now, he's the womanising spy, famed for his rampant alcohol abuse and insanely high kill count. I'm not talking about Kevin. But now cinema goers will be worried about James Bond's antics, which might leave them shaken, not stirred.
Snowflakes at the British Film Institute have issued an absurd trigger alert for modern-day filmgoers, warning them that 007's movies could cause offence and upset modern-day film lovers. We are delighted now to be joined by the editor and publisher of 007 Magazine Graham Rye and former Bond girl Jenny Hanley. Welcome to you both. Let's go to you first, Jenny. I'm assuming, and well you should be, that you're proud to have been a Bond girl. Now, in the end, aren't Bond films just a bit of fun? They're thrillers, they're exciting, they're fun. Yeah, let's just say it, they're sexy. Do we have to have these po-faced trigger warnings for grown adults who can make up their own mind whether or not they're offended?
Absolutely. And the books were written in the 50s when times were different. I mean, if you want to change things or you feel you're going to be upset, don't choose to go and see a film that was made in 1970. You know it's going to be different. I mean, in early 70s, I wanted to get a mortgage. I wasn't allowed one unless I had a male as a guarantor. And that was the times. So you can't say that Bond must be changed or that somebody should apologise. Find out what film you're going to see, and if you don't want see a misogynist or people being killed, don't choose a Bond film. I mean, I don't want someone to apologise when I go to a 1920s film for it being in black and white. I know it's going to be in black and white.
Exactly.
Graham, going to you now. I mean, it's interesting. I would argue that, yes, of course, you've got women portrayed a certain way, but James Bond films, the franchise, always gave roles to women who could put a knife to someone's neck or karate kick their head. I actually think, in many respects, it was one of the few films that portrays women in a very different light to other films. I mean, looking back at the canon of James Bonds, are you slightly sort of disappointed that recent James Bond films have sort of become a little bit, you know, they pussyfoot around political correctness now?
Well, yes, but that's a whole other subject that could take us for the rest of the afternoon to discuss. But I'm incensed by the British Film Institute because the British public don't need to be told or lectured about what they should and shouldn't see or how they should apply their sensibilities to it. Their quote, if I may read it, please note that many of these films contain language, images, or other content that reflect views prevalent in its time but will cause offence today. And then the icing on the cake of idiocy here is the brackets that contain the words, as they did then. The James Bond films did not cause offence when they were released all through the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s at all. They were huge entertainment and they were escapist entertainment. And those are the two words that people don't seem to use in this conversation about these books and films, is that it's escapist entertainment. Nobody's supposed to take it seriously. It's all fun.
Yeah, that was my whole point, Graham, that, you know, first of all, I think this is the British Film Institute, you know, pouring scorn on, what, not arguably, as a matter of fact, the greatest film export that we have given to the world, the British, the James Bond franchise, the most phenomenal franchise in the history of the movie industry. And here we have our own institute pouring scorn on it. And as you quite rightly say, look, I take James Bond films seriously because I know I'm going to be really entertained. But do I take the content seriously? Of course I don't. That's the point. These films are just for fun, aren't they?
They are indeed.
Can
and
I
I
just,
think
nobody is forcing you to go. It's your choice. If you want to go and be insulted, then please do. But why ruin it for everybody else? It's like when the Vatican Museum, excuse me, gentlemen, but broke off all the penises from all the statues and put fig leaves on. You know, avert your gaze. Don't go to the cinema to see that film.
Yeah, what I find quite astonishing is that James Bond is pretty tame compared to the content when it comes to misogyny, violence and language of most of today's rap and pop videos. I mean, actually, if anything, it's pretty wet. Jenny, tell us about when you were a Bond girl, and the character you played and what it was like doing that.
Which one were you in, Jenny?
Well, I was hardly in it. I was more set dressing.
Which film?
Don't play it down, Jenny.
Which film was it, though, Jenny? Remind us.
On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Was that the one with Lazenby? Is that right?
Diana Rigg.
Okay.
Dame Diana Rigg. Fighting, skiing, doing all sorts of wonderful things. She certainly wasn't a sort of shrinking violet. I mean, that wasn't how the books were written.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean. That is the remarkable thing. I actually think the James Bond franchise has done a great service to women, actually, in some respects. Graham, I mean, looking back, there are things. I can think of a few, certainly. One of my favourite Bond films is You Only Live Twice. It's got everything, hasn't it? It's got spaceships and it's got that helicopter with a big magnet, volcanoes opening up. It's also got that iconic scene where James Bond goes to some sort of strange spa to look Japanese and comes out, well, just still looking like Sean Connery, frankly. But, you know, there are some sort of things that were of their time, but they're quite funny.
well, if you're going to try and sort of mix in with the Japanese public, even if you are 6'2", it helps you to go undercover if you look like them. So any of this cultural appropriation rubbish that people come out with is just that, rubbish. And what really annoys me is when the British Film Institute put out a quote like that, and also somebody, a woke spangle, a BFI staff member who thinks that those films did cause offence in the 60s and 70s. They didn't. They're publishing an out-and-out lie about the most successful franchise of films, you know, ever made. And the other thing that people probably don't think about is the amount of work that those films have brought into this country. The film industry is phenomenal. You know, it's just, you know, and it's something that's really very important to the film industry.
The other thing that concerns me about this, this is for both of you really, we haven't got long now, but they're treating us like children. As you said, Jenny, we can make up our own minds what we want to watch. We're adults. We don't need these juvenile trigger warnings, right, Jenny?
Absolutely. I don't want a nanny state.
Yes.
If I don't want to see a film, I don't have to go. And everybody does their research before, otherwise you wouldn't go and see the film. So I don't need an institution which is beautiful and admirable and wonderful, apologising for something that we should be proud of.
Hear, 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 Jenny. Thank you to
so
both
much.
of you.
Thank you, Graham, as well. Fascinating.
Thank you very much.